tonight. She's had an issue with a friend and a medical issue, and she's attending to them. So we certainly offer our prayers out to her as she goes. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
None.
All right. Is there a motion we adopt the agenda?
I so move it.
Motion, and I'll second it, I guess. All in favor by show of hands. We motion and second. It's got to be right.
Got to be.
Approval of the April 4th minutes. Is there a motion to approve those?
We approve it.
All right. Second. All in favor, show of hands. It's all of both of us. Done. Item number 5 is an ordinance establishing and implementing a program to charge mitigation rates for the development of emergency and non-emergency services by the fire or rescue department for services provided and rendered for the Newberry County Emergency Services. Item under A under this is discussion, and he's already at the podium.
I got you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Tommy. Thank you for coming.
Welcome back to town.
Thank you.
We have discussed this, I think, at our last meeting that we had back in October, but we want to present it again because we feel like we're losing a way of collecting some funding to help us do some things in emergency services. So this ordinance, and y'all should have it in y'all's packet, this is just one I kind of tweaked so it can be changed however this committee or council decides we need to change it. But I do have a little PowerPoint. We had actually met with this company, probably been like 2 years ago since we've done this, but I got a PowerPoint I was gonna run through right quick. It kind of explains how they can bill for us and so forth. Not saying this is the company we would go with, but this is the one that we just did a demo with. So I'm gonna try to run through this and let y'all kind of see what they can offer us. It's a cost recovery program. This is some of the different things they do offer is an inspection program, self-inspection program, billing for EMS, first responder support program, and first responder subscription program. What it does is the significant cost that we incur, it can help us recover some of those funds that are costing us. So I'm not going to read this word for word. Y'all, if you got any questions, I'm going to kind of skip through to the main part of it here. Just basically billing, and we're going to set, the way we're going to set it up is, unless council tells us different, is we will be billing for insurance reimbursement only. We will not be pursuing if their insurance don't pay that, we won't be pursuing the individual to cover that cost. And that's up to the council if they want to have us change that. So you can claim bill for motor vehicle accidents, vehicle fires, structure fires, landing zones, hazmat calls, and any special rescue services. And we have quite a few of those goes on in our county. This is based on the run data I had given them back about 2 years ago. The data is estimating us to bring in at least $65,000. And like I said, that's 2 years old. And that was before a lot of the construction on the interstate is taking place. So we probably have doubled that by now dealing with the interstate construction. And that's just a breakdown over the call volume I had given him. As you can see, a lot of it comes from motor vehicle accidents. And we do quite a few landing zones. Landing zones bring in a significant amount as well. However, that has probably gone down, landing zones, because the helicopter that we were using was based in Irmo at that time, is no longer there, so we're having to pull a helicopter further away, and a lot of times we have to just cancel them because the ETA is too long for us. This basically just explains how we go about getting the information to send to the billing company. Usually they charge you about 25% of what you billing for, so they get to keep that 25%. That's the way most all of these services are due. This just explains that part of it. So I'm not going to go into great detail unless y'all got a question. It's basically a software program that we just go in and enter the information, send them a copy of the fire report, and they handle it from there. Lawrence County, which I talked to today, I had talked to them previously, but they are using this company, several of their fire departments are using this same vendor. They actually have 3 vendors they use at different departments up there, but they said they're more pleased with this company than the other 2 they're using. And I don't remember the names of the other 2. So that's just a kind of a snippet of what that company does. And if y'all had a chance to look over the ordinance, did you have any questions about anything that you've seen in the ordinance?
Let's go back to that part first. Any questions, Reverend Scurry?
No.
Reverend Councilman Scurry? I'd say, this is my perspective, long overdue, long overdue. We've left too much money on the table for too long. So it's not that we want to punish anybody, we're not trying to make money,
Exactly.
but none of that stuff rolls for free.
Exactly.
And so I had, Robert Plaxico called me about something else yesterday, and so I had a chance to talk to him, and they're still doing it and doing well with it.
And they use this particular company.
I guess one of my questions would be, would this be an RFP, would a bid project, or how would we, I mean, we'd have to find
We'd have
some
to
way to
bid it out.
pick it out, right?
That's correct.
That's right.
Okay. All right. And then the funds, what is, sorry. Buddy's telling me he's not going to be, no, he's not on this committee. Would we earmark these funds to public safety, just to the general fund, and then use them, or how would we use them? I guess I should have asked that earlier.
Sure. No,
Because I guess in my mind, the division would not be equal. Some of the stations are going to get a lot more interstate runs than some of the others. Some are going to have others. So the divisioning of the money is not going to be equal, and
Right.
I don't know that that's fair.
Mr. Chairman, my suggestion to you is that it costs the county somewhere around $1.3 million annually for fire and rescue. And we don't have a lot of revenues to show for those services. So this is money that would go to the general fund. Obviously, council decides every year what to do with those
I
monies.
gotcha.
But I think in one way or another, it goes back to public safety.
No question about it. Okay. All right. So anything else?
That's
other
it.
than that? Okay. Again, well done. I appreciate the research on this, and I appreciate I don't know what this county would do without our volunteer fire and rescue, and so we're blessed beyond measure. And I didn't have any questions about the ordinance. I think that the county administrator alluded that they may look at the fee structure a little bit, but
Yeah, we'd love to get the committee to go ahead and make a motion to move it forward to council. In the interim time till we get it ready for council, which probably won't be till July, we have had some discussions about the fee schedule and making there's a draft fee schedule in your packet. We think those numbers need to be changed, and so before we would bring it to council, we will make those changes as part of that recommendation. But we don't want to wait 3 months for another committee meeting. We'd love for this committee to approve us moving forward to county council.
okay. Is there a motion to approve this to council?
I so move.
I'll second it. All in favor by show of hands. It is both of us. It is approved and moved forward. All right. Next is the discussion of rolling stock.
Was that mine or yours?
We're gonna get tag teamed on this one.
On the rolling stock, I think the biggest thing we wanted to bring to your attention is how far behind we are on the fire apparatus. Not so much the rescue side or the hazmat side, but the fire apparatus. We're trying to come up with some different suggestions and some ideas of trying to raise some funding, and we're gonna get into a couple more of those on down in the agenda, but I'm gonna let Mr. Iglesias kick in on this part, because I'm not sure exactly where we want to go with this one.
So Tommy's provided me with the inventory of vehicles for both fire, rescue, and EMS. We have in excess of 100 vehicles, including boats, ATVs, trucks, fire engines, pumpers, tankers, ambulances, rapid response vehicles. And so we've kind of begun the process of evaluating that inventory, looking at not just the age, but consolidating where we can. So I know Tommy's committee on the fire advisory board is, they actually have a committee devoted to looking at vehicles, and they're looking at the inventory with an eye towards reducing the numbers of trucks, which reduces our maintenance costs over a long period of time and combines some of the services that the vehicles can do into one truck. And I know Tommy's worked really hard to reduce that over the last couple of years, probably by 10 vehicles, if I remember. So we've kind of set a goal to reduce that another 9 or 10 vehicles over the next coming years as we buy new vehicles. So we're not just looking at replacing old stock, but we're looking at ways of combining pumper takers where we can, and brush trucks with rapid response vehicles where we can, and just kind of evaluating the overall inventory at the same time. It seems excessive for 11 firehouses and 7 rescue houses with substations to have over 110, 112 vehicles. So I think there's an opportunity there to kind of trim that down, which for maintenance reasons, insurance, et cetera, will be a benefit to the county.
And it's just gonna take a little time, we got to get some new vehicles in order to get to that point.
And we wouldn't do all that without sacrificing any ISO rating at all either. So we'll be looking closely at making sure we're not crossing into sacrificing services at all.
Okay.
Then one last comment on the fleet. I think everybody acknowledges that we've got some aging vehicles that need replacement, and some of the discussion in tonight's agenda is finding ways of raising revenue to help us pay for that, help us dig out of that hole a little bit. Some of the things we already talked about, billing and insurance, that's one piece of the puzzle to raising revenues. Later, we're going to talk about potentially creating a capital purchases fund by diverting MCP revenues to a capital fund. There's on the horizon potentially a public safety fee on the DMV, or excuse me, on the vehicle tax bill. And then Tommy's going to talk to you about renting the training facility. So these are all just ways that we have been brainstorming internally about raising our revenue side in public safety to help dig out of that hole.
Any questions or comments on that one?
Question, we'll go forward on it.
I appreciate the efforts. I think I've told both of you individually, I was a little concerned. We got to keep our stuff up. No need in having a fire department if you can't go put out the fire or go rescue somebody. But you also don't need more trucks than you can actually physically man and get out there. So there's got to be a balance somewhere in those. So I appreciate the efforts in doing that. But we got to keep our fleet up. Next is the discussion of diverting funds from MCIP, FILO for capital fund.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is an idea we discussed with Finance Committee. I've had some individual conversations about this. I think it also came up during budget. And the idea here is that we have these industrial parks, and within the industrial parks, there are industry sites. Those industries typically have ended up in a FILO agreement with the county, wherein the industry pays a fee in lieu of taxes to the county. And that is negotiated with council and usually set out for 20 or 30 or even 40 years in some cases. Some of the discussion has been that, kind of in reflecting on the lessons we learned from Caterpillar's exit from Newberry County, how that affected the general operating fund and sort of sent the county into fixing that loss in revenue. So that represented about $1 million lost revenue that was very sudden and unplanned for, the way I understand it. And so I think the concern that I heard was that relying on MCP or FILO revenue for operating can put us back in that situation again. And perhaps those funds should be used for capital purchases, which we don't have a capital fund now. The way we do capital purchases now is, first of all, we cut the capital request from every department across the board because we don't have money to fund many of their requests. For example, facilities requested numerous projects for numerous buildings, and that request got cut in half because couldn't find the funding to fund all the things facilities manager recommended. Similarly with Tommy, he puts in a request, we can't fund it all, and so we can't keep up. I think the thinking at this point is that it's better to rely on those FELO funds or those MCP funds for capital purchases, because if there is a sudden exodus that affects our budget, then it's better to go 1 or 2 or 3 years without capital purchases than it is to lay people off because operations relies on that money. Where we are today is that we currently collect about $1.4 million in FELO revenues from MCP, from all the parks that are active right now. About $1 million of that goes into our general fund and is dispersed for capital purchases, for operations, for whatever we need. About $450,000 of it is committed to a bond payment, an annual bond payment for the next many years. So all that being said is, council will have to make a policy decision at some point, probably in the near future, about a new MCP that will come to you. And according to our council, that is the time in which council can divert these funds, is at the time of establishing the MCP. You can go back and amend it, and we have talked a little bit about going back and amending MCCP2, which is the newest park that has only one tenant, and they have not completed construction, so we haven't collected any revenue from them. And so there is an opportunity to go back and amend that possibly. But all of this is still just being discussed at this point, but council will have to make a decision when we bring the next MCP to you. We will probably make a recommendation that some percentage of new revenue from that park be committed to a capital fund. So here's how it would work. Council would decide that they want to divert funds to a capital fund, and they would say 50% of revenue from this new industrial park, or 75%, or 100%, or whatever, will be diverted to a capital fund. You can keep it as broad or as specific as you want. For example, at that time, council can say 50% to capital specifically for public safety, or specifically for public safety and another 25% for parks, or whatever council chooses to divert the funds to for strictly capital purchases. What we heard at finance was that there's an interest in funding capital purchases for public safety, for public works, and for more economic development projects, and maybe or maybe not parks, capital purchases. And so what we'll probably present to council is 50 or 75% diversion of funds towards capital purchases, and lump it in for those 4 uses. And then every year annually through the budget process, council will decide how much, if any, of those capital funds to spend that year. So if we only have 150,000 in there, you might decide to save it up for a few years. If we build it up over several projects and we have a goal of raising $1 million in capital revenue, $1 million in revenue specifically for capital purchases, that's about what we need every year. We've been spending about $1.3 million on capital purchases and borrowing to do quite a bit of that. We didn't have to do that this year, largely because of the ARP funds, but typically we would borrow. So if we can build this fund up over the next few years, it's going to save taxpayers lots of money by not having to borrow for purchases that we have to make every year. Like vehicles, we can end the lease purchase program, pay cash for vehicles, and save taxpayers tons of money.
Questions or comments? I'd just say, I think this is, again, a really smart idea. We just signed a new business with the company I work for And it's a police department, and they are hiring 10 officers based off of what they're picking up off of philo from houses and building permits from houses and from an industry park. So I think it's out there. And we have learned the hard way that the industry becomes the strain on your public service and public safety and public works. But we saw in the garbage collection and the fire service. In fact, that was the creation of the false alarm ordinance. And so I think it just makes good business sense for there to be some type of fee attached to that to help with the strain. Our budget's set to accommodate what we have, and now there's a strain on it based on them. So I think it just makes good business sense. All right. Discussion of grant consultant meetings.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As y'all know, the budget as it currently stands after second reading includes funding for a full-time grants writer. I have investigated the idea of using a consulting firm that has grant writing services that would be an alternative to hiring a full-time employee. So we've actually talked to three. Tommy participated in two of them. They were both very good meetings. One is a company out of Washington, D.C. The other is a company that has offices all over, but has an office. We talked to the office out of Charleston. They do work with Greenwood, and they do work with other South Carolina jurisdictions, and are very familiar with the Newberry territory. Both of them have fee structures. They're both different. One grant consultant sets up their clients on an $8,000 a month retainer, which if you do the math is $96,000 a year, I think. And the other one does, they have some different options where they will actually do the research for a grant, find a good match for Newberry County, and then say, here's a grant we think you should pursue. This is our fee to write this grant, and to help with oversight on the compliance side. The retainer, the other one does, all of that is included, the writing the grant, the oversight of compliance on the finance side. Both sides provide those services, both on the front end and the back end. But one is structured where it's sort of an ad hoc fee basis. They also offer the option of paying an hourly rate for a certain defined number of hours each week. That way you can budget each year for whatever you can afford. So we have a budgeted amount for this grant writer service, and both firms fit nicely and neatly into what the budget number that we've been talking about providing. So the third person was an individual who has a consulting firm who has worked in South Carolina, is very familiar with Newberry, came to me from the sheriff, and we spoke, and she's very enthusiastic about possibly doing some work for the county. And I can't remember, I don't think we spoke about what her fee, I think she gave a range of $50 to $125 an hour, depending on the jurisdiction. So those, to me, we don't have to make any decisions right away. If the budget is approved as is on third reading, we will probably come back to council afterwards and recommend one way or another. I think there's a risk in hiring a full-time employee. We got to find space for them. We got to pay IT services for them. We got to pay workers' comp. We got all these hidden fees that really probably weren't budgeted for. And then we take the risk of hiring somebody and maybe it doesn't work out or they're gone in 6 months. Whereas with a consultant, you get some stability, you get a high level of experience, you get a team. One of the consultants has engineers and people that help them price these projects. So they have in-house estimators for like a road project, which that was a very attractive thing about one of the consultants. So it's looking more and more like a very good option for us because it fits nicely in our budget and it is sort of hassle-free as far as managing another space and personnel issues, which is one of the most challenging things that I have to deal with. So we'll come back to you after budget and make a recommendation. But a lot of good news there, a lot of good information we got. Tommy, you want to chime in on that? You participated in a couple of them.
We had some good discussion with both of those companies I participated in, but I highly recommend going this route instead of hiring somebody, because you're getting a team as well as you see what you can come up with during that year. And then at that point, we may want to look at hiring a full-time position. But I think this would be a way to find out what's out there and what they can possibly get for us versus us hiring just a one-person team to begin with. So I think it would definitely be the direction we need to go. That's my
I
opinion.
just finished reviewing 10 grants for the Department of Justice, and you can tell which ones were professionally done and which ones were kind of a wing and a prayer. Some of them didn't even have all the supporting documents, so they were excluded and those kind of things. So that it does definitely make a difference in what reviewers
And it's very
do.
time-consuming.
It is very, very time consuming. Been there, done it, got the T-shirt. Discussion of $3 public safety fee on vehicle and boat tax bill.
I'll
Get it
kick it
started?
off, and then,
Yeah.
I brought this up to Mr. Iglesias about the possibility of adding a public safety fee on the vehicles and possibly boats as well. Don't have boats listed on the agenda, I don't think.
Yes, it does.
Oh, it does, mine don't, I must have printed it too early. So I was suggesting anywhere from a $3 to a $5 fee on those tax bills. If we went with the, let me see where I put my figure at here. I think if we went with the $3, we was looking at about $130,000, and the other one was, let me see, where did I put that at? Here it is, $218,000, and this is like a year ago figures.
Tommy, I thought there was $1 million figure in there somewhere.
You may have been looking at what the actual taxes is they were getting in.
Okay.
So we got 40,000, this was from last fiscal year. We got 40,206 vehicles and 3,424 boats. So my calculation might not be right, but this would definitely bring us in some extra funding to hopefully secure a couple of positions under my office to do a coordinator and a fire marshal that is desperately needed. And there should be extra funding to do a few other things, be it a vehicle for those positions or whatever it may be. But that was just a suggestion I'd like for us to look at. So you want to chime in?
So, I'm supportive of this. The hesitation right now is the recent South Carolina Supreme Court case out of Greenville that changed the way we have to analyze the legality of a fee that we charge as a county. And without getting into the legal weeds of that case, there is a bill that is in conference, and we'll probably know very soon whether it gets passed, that will resolve that issue from the Supreme Court opinion. And until that is resolved, it's not advisable to move forward on attaching a fee. But if it is resolved, we will be back in short order to propose that. So.
Okay.
Good.
That's good.
Sounds great.
I'll say a couple of caveats before I tell you where I'm at on it. And the first is I'm adamantly opposed to fees as a general rule. And the reason that I don't like fees is because $100, let's say $125. I'm not going to talk about the $3 first. I'll fix that. $125 doesn't cut the same way for a little old lady who's got to decide between paying taxes and buying medicine as it does somebody in a $500,000 house. And so I'm not a fan of fees. And one of the biggest complaints I get is how high vehicle taxes is already. Having said that, I don't think $3 is really going to be an earth breaker for anybody. So, but I do think we have to keep those things in consideration as we look at something like this. We can't be blind to our constituents and who pays the ultimate price, because of our senior citizens are very important to our community, and some of them are really struggling in this economy.
Yes.
Trying to take $800 or $1,000 and live a month in this economy is. Mm-hmm. I don't know how they do it, to be honest with you.
I agree with you.
I'm sorry, proposal for renting the training facility.
Okay, and y'all should have that in your packet, I assume. I've been approached by at least one industry wanting to possibly use the facility for some training they are required to do yearly. So I put together a facility and props schedule to accommodate that if we're willing to, as council is willing to let us do that. I think it'd be another great way for us to bring in some income into the county to help offset some of the utilities or whatever at our training grounds as well. So as we develop it even more, to get different props out there, hopefully we can add to this. But this is a schedule I put together to move us toward that. Of course, anybody that would be using it would have to have a workers' comp and have us as an additional assured on that policy before we let them come on the grounds to do training. So we already know that's going to have to happen. So all that would be lined up with the industry before we let them come on site. So if you have any questions about that, I'll try to answer them for you.
I didn't see in the agreement, and I know this sounds stupid, but no alcohol out there. Can you
I
put
don't have that in there, but I can add it.
you shouldn't have to say
You
that,
shouldn't
but in
have to.
today's world, you do.
You shouldn't have to.
I don't want our EOC, our backup EOC facility or training facility turned into something that people are renting to having their Christmas parties and those kind of things.
That's a good catch.
Yep.
Anything else?
That's the only thing
Okay.
I saw.
That would be just for this purpose.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't said.
There might be a party for some other purpose that might have some, not for training though.
No. If you're renting, like some of the other places we
Right,
do
right.
allow, but
For
to
a
me, this
family
is.
reunion or something.
Yeah, this is not
Exactly.
rent it for Saturday night. This
Exactly.
is a training facility and it ought to be treated and appreciated appropriately. And the tendency is when you involve alcohol, your stuff doesn't get well taken care of.
That's
We
correct.
don't need that problem.
All right. Discussion of possible new position for public safety training coordinator.
Mr. Chairman, on the previous one,
Uh-huh.
I think we're ready to move forward to council on
Oh, I'm
that.
sorry. Is there a motion that we approve that rental agreement with the addition of no alcohol?
So move.
I'll second it. All in favor by show of hands. We both agree. So we will present that to full council. All right, now discussion of a possible new position for public safety training coordinator.
Okay, this would basically be an emergency services coordinator. The wording may not be exactly what you had in your agenda, but this person would be under me, and I would, I include a job description. I think y'all got in your agenda package, hopefully, but if not, this kind of explains what they would be doing. As we transition into possibly doing some of these different things that I presented tonight here with the training grounds and billing for calls and things like that, I definitely need some assistance in helping trying to get those things accomplished because I'm already kind of overwhelmed with the things I'm dealing with, from the pandemic to everyday disasters and different things. So I have come up with a way to possibly pay for that position. For the most part, we were in a combined agreement with the city. And as we all very well know by now, probably that Mr. Chief Minnick retired from the city, and Gene, which was doing the training for us as a combined position, has moved into the chief's position. So we felt like this was a good time to kind of withdraw from that agreement and take that fund and then put toward this position, which would be about $40,000. I also have a service agreement that I'm not going to be renewing for our old radio system, which is about $20,000. So. And by the time I'd be able to hire this position, it would probably be in the 2 to 3 months into the new budget year. So there would be enough money in there for this first year to cover that salary. So I'm here tonight to try to ask that we look at adding that position into the budget. And Mr. Iglesias, if you want to add anything for that.
I'm in favor.
I think everything I've heard tonight's been a good idea, but that's the best idea I've heard tonight. So
Thank you very much.
I think it would be. I think it's just great to have your own identity in today's world, and so and to try to help you with some of these things.
I agree.
Motion to
Motion.
Motion to carry this full council, and I'll second that motion to go to full council. All in favor, we agree it will go to council as such.
Thank you. I saved the best for last.
Okay? All right. Tommy, you can go sit down. Is anybody signed up for public comment, Jack? Y'all are here. Is there anything y'all want to say to the committee since you made the effort to come here, or anything you want to tell us? You want to tell me stuff about Tommy later? We appreciate you taking the time to come tonight. It's always a blessing to see people here, Tim. We appreciate you coming, and we just appreciate all of you coming and being here tonight with us. And if you have anything, we're as close as a phone call away. Thank you isn't enough for what you guys did, and we just appreciate it more than you know. And to our full-time personnel, and Sheriff Foster and his staff, and all that they have to endure as well.
Definitely.
Comments or requests from the committee? Reverend Scurry?
No, good to see them all, and be safe out there.
None from me. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
I'll second it. All in favor? We stand adjourned. Thank you.